Good evening, all. I'm gonna tilt that down a little bit more. Had it semi-straight, not super crooked. Thought I was gonna be all happy with it. Then I'm like, that's a little too much clearance over my head. So let's sort that out. Okay. Get this going, get that going, this, that, and the other. Hey! Evening, all. Hi there, Kane. How are we today? I'm okay. Bit of a mixed day, all things considered, but like I'm doing all right. Is this the reboot of the live stream? Actually, it's worth clarifying. The sort of what's been on my mind, and like I don't know how much this thing's gonna stay on topic. I suppose about as much as any live stream ever stays on topic. But what's sort of been in my mind lately is that reboots seem to lately have been replaced by revivals. So rather than rebooting the old thing, we just bring it back and continue from wherever it left off, which is an interesting shift. Versus what it used to be for a while. Hey there, Castile. Ever heard the song 99 Luft Balloons? Well, yes, I am old enough to be familiar with that song. Oh, I really am getting on that of it. I have my my 20th high school reunion next year. Oh boy. So yeah, just sort of what's gotten me thinking about this in general. So like some of the properties that this has happened to lately, obviously the Dark Crystal just came out, the new series on Netflix. We had the Halloween thing that like disregarded every sequel, and only went off the first one. There's been talk of doing something similar with Alien. The new Terminator movie that comes out this year is a sequel to Terminator 2 and is disregarding the other ones. Mad Max Fury Road was in many ways kind of a revival. They did it with Roseanne. They did it with God, can't even think of the Will and Grace. I was trying to think, what's the name of that show I hate? Will and Grace. That was it. It's odd to me that we've shifted from let's reboot everything to let's bring it back with the same people. And I'm not sure it's better, but it's interesting. As far as general shifts in approaches go. Is there a way of announcing the old Council of Geeks skits and sketches are being revived? No, that's definitely not happening. Even if some of the people who were involved with that hadn't moved away and weren't local to me anymore, I now better understand my own limits as a cinematographer and an editor. And as that kind of writer, and those things were such a pain to put together. Like I'm proud of them and I'm happy with them, but like no, not again. Do you think that's what the new Matrix will do? Oh yeah, that's another one. Because word is that the new Matrix is not a reboot, but will be some form of continuation. So it's very interesting that all these things that we thought would be done are now being brought back, but not as a reboot. Now, I suppose for clarification, because I can see that somebody asked. I can speak. The difference between a reboot and what I'm talking about, a reboot is you clear the continuity. Like you're reusing the brand, the iconography, but you're disregarding the previous films as far as an actual storyline and any continuity goes. So like, the 2016 Ghostbusters was a reboot. I forget when the last RoboCop was, but that was a reboot. Things like the ones I already mentioned, those are actually intended to tie back to whatever was the previous iteration. He-Man, that's another one that got announced recently. That thing on Netflix is apparently going to be a revival of the show. Not like literally in the same animation style. They've got a new animation house and everything, but continuity-wise, it is meant to be a continuation. So it's just really interesting. And actually part of what got me thinking of it, because I have now already seen The Dark Crystal. I burned through it over the weekend. I've already shot my review. That goes up on Friday. And what immediately started watching the making of as soon as I finished. And what was really interesting is that one of the first things they had an interview with this guy who's probably younger than I am, who's like some sort of creative executive-ish type over at Netflix. And he had a really, I think, a very healthy perspective, especially one when we've seen so many of these reboots just not work. Is that, people, when they bring these things back, they keep just taking the name and thinking that people will come back for the name. They don't come back for the name, they come back for the core things that they loved. And if you can bring back as many of those things as possible, that just makes more sense. And that was part of why Netflix actually did Dark Crystal as puppets again, because it was actually pitched as an animated series, because the Henson Company had kind of assumed no one's ever going to give us the money to do this live action puppetry ever again. But people like it, and maybe we'll get something else. But this one guy, well, I'm sure there were other people, but this guy who they interviewed from Netflix was like, it really should be this, shouldn't it? I mean, I think it shows a better understanding of what people want when they want things to come back, because people don't have just an attachment to a name or even a concept. It's not a brand. People love specific things, and you should be bringing those back, whether you're doing it as a reboot or a revival. The marketers like reboots. That's the main thing. The thing is, I'm not sure marketers do love reboots. I think marketers hate reboots. I think the bookkeepers, the accounting and the risk assessment people love reboots, because I've said this repeatedly and I will continue to say it. It's that something having a name that is already known and worked at least once before is considered to be a form of risk avoidance. So even if you have an idea that is completely original, if you can crowbar a way to slap on a known name, that appeals more to the people who hold the purse strings, because the chart says that it's more likely to succeed if it's a name people already know. Whereas She-Ra is a reboot. Yes, so the current She-Ra on Netflix is a full and proper reboot. The new He-Man will not be, which does make it rather unlikely that they're ever going to connect with each other. I, for one, am ready AF for a Xena Warrior Princess reboot. Just saying, I don't think you need to reboot Xena, though. Have you seen Lucy Lawless? She looks amazing. She could still totally play that part. There was no need to reboot it. You want to bring it back, just bring it back. Is there any advice you could give to me right now? I have a mixed bag this week. My birthday on Thursday, but I don't think I could enjoy it much because I just put my pet down. Oh. Well, first of all, I'm very sorry to hear that, Meg, and my heart goes out to you. I'm old enough and I've had enough pets that I know what it's like to have to do that, and it's never fun, and it's never an easy thing to go through. I think, depending on what friends you have around, what things you can pull together, I think it would probably be in your best interest to try and do something, because the alternative is to sit at home and wallow in your loneliness. Now, we don't know each other personally enough for me to make a solid recommendation, but if you have it in you to go out or at least have people over, my inclination is that would be the better thing to do. But that's, broadly speaking. I remember that one time the creators of SWAT Cats did a Kickstarter for a pitch for a reboot for that show. Oh God, yeah, I didn't even think to bring up Kickstarter in this. How many proposed revivals and reboots of things like cartoons and video games and spiritual successors, this, that, and the other, because the people running the campaign don't actually have the rights to do the original thing. How many of those have launched? How many have failed to even hit their thing? And then the ones that did, how many of them let us down? Oh boy. There's an animated series on Netflix called 12 Forever. Well, I've yet to see the series. I've been informed that the creator is being outed for several sexual allegations. I am neither familiar with the show nor the behind-the-scenes thing, so I have absolutely no take on that because I don't know anything about it. It's September. Why is it still 90 degrees? Last year it was blazingly hot into September too. This unfortunately isn't new. I'm sorry to say. There's a Xenia reboot already. It's called Ash versus the Evil Dead. I only got a couple of episodes into that. I think I've lost my. I think Ash as a character I've kind of grown out of. Not that like he's suddenly bad or like Bruce Campbell can't still play him. He still plays him perfect. I've just kind of grown out of that type of character as being one who I want to like stick around with for new stuff. It's fun for me to revisit the older Evil Dead stuff because I have nostalgia for that. But I realize I don't really want to see the continued adventures of this character. But that's just me personally. It seemed like a really good continuation. Thoughts on Peter Capaldi being in the Suicide Squad movie? I have none because I don't know who he's playing. He's in it. He's an actor I like. I mean, yay, but I don't know who he's playing. And I have to assume it's a relatively small part given that production's supposed to start up soon. If it was a major part, it would have been cast long before this. What is your least favorite TV show? How does anyone even answer that? Because I feel like to call something your least favorite, you have to have watched enough of it to really understand why you dislike it. Most things that I really dislike, I'll say that I dislike them, but I try not to go off. I'm eating grapes, by the way. I try not to go off on them too much because, like, I recognize that I haven't watched much of them. So there's only so much I can judge. But I mean, if you want to talk broadly about stuff that I have a strong distaste for, but like that people around me seem to enjoy. I mentioned Will and Grace, The Big Bang Theory. That's a big one. I really, really, really don't like that show. But there aren't a lot of seedless grapes. Nope, they're seeded. I'm just swallowing the seeds. Yes, they're seedless. You know, given that, you know, I don't stick with shows that I don't like, for me to say something is my least favorite show, that'd be like watching 10 minutes of a 2-hour movie and going, that's my least favorite movie. It's like, well, you didn't stick with it. But that's not me saying that you should stick with a show you don't like. If you don't like it, stop watching it. But, you know. Are you eating grapes? In quotes. See, I'm amused by that. Because what would grapes even be? Like, I know what water is. But grapes, now I'm really just curious, Gabe, as to where your head's going. Let's see. Somehow grapes, quotes, is more concerning than water. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. That's my stupid question for the night. Thanks, folks. Yeah, well done. I dislike shows that other people are too aggressive about thinking I should like. That can happen. Like when people like super push you need to see this, you need to see this, you need to see this, you need to see this. And then you're watching, you're like, it was okay. It was fine. But like you're a bit resentful that people were so insistent that you would love it. Yeah, I've had that. Edibles technology has really gotten advanced. I suppose that's valid, especially like in Vermont where I live. Edibles are definitely like they're a thing now. They're not my thing, but they're a thing. Do you think they'll make a continuation of the Solo movies? Do you mean the Han Solo Star Wars story thing? No, that thing underperformed severely. They're not going to build off that. Thank you, Carowin. Nicely caught. I've started watching the filmography of French animation filmmaker Michel Ocelot. I'm not going to try and properly say that with accent. From what I've seen, his work is incredible. He's a very strong sense of style and storytelling. Do you know the name of any of the things he's done? Because I may or may not have seen some of it. Odds are probably not. Just like straight up, I'll cop to that. I'm that way about Arrested Development. Yeah, I tried Arrested Development. It was okay. Not my bag. Same with The Office, for that matter. Like, it's fine, but like, it's okay. I can say one reboot that has worked for me recently is the new Netflix Sabrina. Surprised how hooked I am. Yeah, I haven't seen that. Then again, I didn't really watch the original either. Have you read Ender's Game? If so, thoughts? I haven't at this point. I'm unlikely to, just because I know enough about Orson Scott Card, and I mean, here's what I would say. I would consider reading it if like somebody sent a copy of the book to my PO box, but I am not going to pay money to acquire a copy of the book, not on audio, not on anything else, because I will not give financially to that to him. I won't. I haven't read it. I feel like even if there wasn't all that going on and like knowing about him in general, I suspect I'd probably miss the window to like Ender's Game. Not to say that like I wouldn't still get something out of it, but the impression I get is that is a book very much geared towards somebody younger than me. Like, and if I'd read it in high school or maybe even college, I probably would have gotten something out of it. I feel like I missed the window on that a bit. You don't like The Office? Yeah, me neither. Lost in Space, One Day at a Time. One Day at a Time, I don't know. The Lost in Space reboot, that was an odd thing. I did finish the first season of that. I didn't talk about it because like I didn't watch it any time near to when it came out. That was a bit of an odd thing. And I'm not sure I'd watch another season of it. Parker Posey was great. I've come to appreciate. I really love well done, manipulative characters, and because it's very difficult to have a character be manipulative in a way that it's clear to the audience that's what's happening, but also doesn't make other characters look dumb for giving in and playing into those manipulations. That's very, very tricky to do. So when it's done, and when it's done well, it is a beautiful thing. Yeah, so Orson Scott Card, he is an out and out, flat out homophobic individual. I mean, like that's not much like with Gareth Roberts being transphobic. Me calling Orson Scott Card homophobic is not a slur against him. That is very literally what he espouses, is the homophobic, the definition of homophobia. So I believe OSC is a Mormon. Whether or not he's I neither condemn nor do I give a pass based off someone's religious backgrounds, especially because to me, your religion, your spiritual beliefs are a very personal thing. And what things you do based off those are also very personal. But if you choose to make that your public statement, your publicly known persona, you make these positions public, I don't really care where they come from. I don't care if it's from his religious background or if it was something he was taught or if he had some sort of traumatic experience with a homosexual person. I'm not going to say I don't care. I mean, if something traumatic happened to him, my heart goes out to anyone that happened to, but where the homophobia comes from is not what concerns me. The fact that it's there is what concerns me. So thoughts on the continuation of the live-action Disney movies? That's a thing? Like the spin-offs like the Prince Charming movie, a prequel to Aladdin called Genies. I remember hearing about Genies. I haven't heard anything on that in years. I assumed that was dead. Hadn't heard about the Prince Charming thing. I suspect, because right now, the Maleficent sequel looks like it's going to open very soft. Well, actually, quick show of hands. Who remembered that a sequel to Maleficent comes out later this year? Anybody? So, like, that is right now tracking to open very soft. And I think if that underperforms, that's probably going to almost immediately kill off the idea of doing sequels to these live-action reboots, which I don't know how I feel about that, because as much as I don't like the Disney live-action remakes, and I really don't, part of me does think if they did sequels to them, they would have to do something more interesting because they wouldn't just be able to remake the original. I mean, oh God, if they were really desperate, they could remake the direct-to-video sequels, but I don't think anyone actually believes that to be a good idea. Bueller. Oh God, talk about a movie that I hate. I hate Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Can't stand that movie. And all my friends loved it. And I'm sitting there watching it, they're laughing their butts off, and I'm sitting there going, he's the world's biggest entitled douche. Why am I supposed to like the very idea that I should identify with this guy feels insulting. I really hate that movie. Return to Oz used to terrify me. No, that's legit. Return to Oz is creepy. Let's see. Third favorite new Who story? That's random. I don't know off the top of my head. I have no idea. I don't even know how to answer that. I hate John Hughes movies, come to think of it. The Breakfast Club. Hold on, I lost it. The Breakfast Club is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. See, I do like The Breakfast Club, personally. I actually haven't seen all that many of his movies, but I do like The Breakfast Club, and I like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. But I can't stand Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I couldn't even get through trying to watch Pretty in Pink or 16 Candles. But, yeah, his work was very of a time. His work was very 80s. And the thing is, I feel like I'm about I'm about the youngest kind of age bracket of people who were expected to like that, and I just didn't. People younger than me, I can't imagine that they get very much out of it. Thank you very much, Thomas. Much appreciated. If you like fantasy, check out the Chronicles of Prydain. Saw someone else mention the Book of Three, but the whole series is very well written. Haven't heard of that one. I'm very picky with fantasy books, largely just because so many of them end up being epic fantasy, heroes' journeys, and I'm just sick of it. Which is why when I talked about last week about the novel that I'm trying to work on getting published for next year is not an epic fantasy. It's a fantasy story, but it doesn't deal with, prophecies and dark omens and chosen ones. So many of them deal in that. And it's not to say that some of them aren't very good, because some of them still can be, but I get really tired of that. And it's hard to find ones that don't deal with those tropes, even if they deal with them well. What would you do if a flying muffin appeared? Eat it! It's muffin time! I'm back in class now, which is fine, but I don't get why my textbooks have to be so damned overpriced. Because going into debt for the next 20, 30 years, simply for the privilege of being there, is not enough money, apparently. Are you allowed to preview what you think of Prisoner of Azkaban? It's both my favorite book and movie. Here's what I will preview for that. Prisoner of Azkaban is my favorite book in the Harry Potter series. Prisoner of Azkaban is not my favorite movie in the Harry Potter series. And I will be discussing why there is that difference Monday next week. Was that an Asta movie reference? Yes, it was. I'm probably going to watch Elf Bowling the movie for Christmas this year, just so I can riff on it. What? Elf Bowling the... I am legitimately terrified to even ask. All right, I'm going to pop over to the Discord real quick. So just as a reminder, the Discord is a Patreon exclusive, and I do have little channel on there that is for people to put in questions for the live stream, and I guarantee that the ones put up on the Discord will be addressed here. Why do you hate Hellbent? I've got multiple rants on why I hate Hellbent, and I'm sure I'll talk about it again in the future. I don't have the energy right now. Well, the first thing that was pointed out was that Doctor Who did it first. This whole idea of reviving something but not rebooting it. That's actually kind of true. Like 2005, the idea of reviving this stuff as opposed to rebooting it wasn't really a thing yet. Yet Doctor Who did exactly that. Now, of course, Doctor Who's a bit of a funny case because the nature of the show and its history allowed you to recast and basically do all the things that you would do if you were just going to reboot it anyway, but still get away with tying it to the old continuity. So Doctor Who is a weird exception to a lot of the normal things that you have to do or avoid when doing a revival of a show, but it did kind of kick things off. Oh, this was in reference to the He-Man show that's being worked on. I only hope Kevin Smith, who's doing the new He-Man, takes a page from Noelle Stevenson's book and throws a bit of subtext into He-Man. I have faith that he won't have Man-at-Arms selling weed in front of convenience stores, but I worry about his ability to add any real depth to the property. I mean, not to belittle Kevin Smith, but I think if you are expecting She-Ra's attention to theming and subtext in the He-Man reboot, you may be expecting too much, but I expect he'll put some stuff in there, you know, some little things here and there to give it a little bit more, or at least I hope so. I still like Kevin Smith in general. I find it insulting how high on IMDb Hellbent is. Let's see. Hellbent ruined a perfectly nice... Oh, boy. I said I didn't want to talk Hellbent, and, like, now everyone's talking about it. Okay. I have not rewatched Hellbent in a very long time. The very first time I watched it, I honestly didn't even know what to think of it. I was just befuddled and confused by what the heck it even was. I didn't get it. I then revisited it a little bit later after some folks sort of helped me wrap my head around what it was trying to be. And at the time I thought slightly better of it because I at least knew what it was going for. But then after that, my opinion of it plummeted when I realized that while it kind of did what it set out to do, what it is setting out to do is all stuff that I fundamentally think were horrible ideas. So that's your short and punchy version on Hellbent. There's a lot of specifics, but like I said, I don't want this to become the Nathaniel gives himself an embolism because he's ranting about Hellbent live stream. Kevin Smith said himself on Batman Beyond that he won't do any of his stereotypical things. I mean, I wouldn't expect. I don't expect he would have. I don't think they brought on Kevin Smith, you know, so that he could have Jason Mewes voice Orko. Like, I don't think that's anybody's plan. I think Fear Her is worse. Well, here's the thing. In trying to judge whether or not an episode is worse than Hellbent, there's two different metrics that you can measure that on. Either you can measure it strictly on the episode self-contained, in which case, no, it's not the worst episode of Doctor Who. However, why it makes me so angry is because of its impact on the show overall, its impact on previous episodes, its impact on what it says about the Doctor as a character in the entire history of the show, and the things that it's saying about his relationship with Clara vis-a-vis literally every other companion relationship he's ever had. I hate what Hellbent does to Doctor Who as a show, much more than how good the episode it is itself in a vacuum. That's not the issue. Because in a vacuum, yes, there are absolutely worse episodes than Hellbent. But none of them do damage beyond the 1 hour it takes to watch that episode like Hellbent does. Hellbent and Heaven Sent is a love letter to past companions. No, Adam, I'm gonna vehemently disagree with you. Hellbent is a love letter to Clara. Heaven Sent is a story about grief. Like, I would not consider either of those to be a love letter to past companions. Hellbent is a love letter to one specific companion, and that's part of why I hate it. My Big Finish order just got here. Squee! That is definitely worth squeeing over, Carowin. Big Finish, like, I've got more Big Finish that I need to start getting into. I think in, I don't know, 2 or 3 years when maybe I'm finally caught up on Classic, I'll start devoting more time to Big Finish. Man, it's good stuff, though. On the topic of Kevin Smith, your favorite of his movies. Like, I haven't seen a lot of his recent stuff. I think the last one of his I saw was Red State. And I didn't see Cop Out before that. So, of the ones he's made, yeah, Dogma, I think. Have you watched Infinity Train? I tried. I can't. Or at least I can't legally. And I don't torrent. I don't pirate. Because the thing is, even though the Cartoon Network app is free, the way you log into it is by giving your credentials for whoever your cable provider is. And I don't have cable. So I don't have a means to legally see Infinity Train. So no, I haven't seen it. Which is a shame because I've seen it compared to Over the Garden Wall, which I love. And I'd like to see it. Like, I'll keep my eye out, see if it gets a DVD release, because I've heard enough good things that if I can find it at a decent price, I might blind buy it. But there you go. How do I get into watching Torchwood? Don't. That's not everybody's opinion. Some people do genuinely like Torchwood. Torchwood is such an uneven show that I have a hard time recommending it just as a thing. Have you seen the Steven Universe movie? I haven't even seen the Steven Universe show, so no. I think Infinity Train is on iTunes for purchase. I haven't tried watching it that way myself. See, excuse me. If I'm going to shell out the money to buy something, I want physical media. I don't like buying digital unless there's literally no other way for me to get it. I'm slightly stubborn and show my age a little bit in that way, but like, if I want to own it, and if I want to pay money to own it, I want a physical disc. I really do put my foot down and draw a line in the sand over that. Let's see. In a world like the culture of the Federation, would there still be a need for gay bars? Okay, well, so this is a question. So the Federation would be Star Trek. The culture would be from the Ian M. Banks books. He has a whole series of them. So probably not, because in a more utopian egalitarian culture where sexuality, or in the case of the culture, even gender itself, is just not something that has a lot of morality attached to it either way, I would think the need for something like a gay bar would not, they may not go away entirely, but I can't imagine it would be the same sort of thing where you go there to ensure that who you encounter are people who approve of you. Because if society as a whole approved of you, then like, if you were, say, a gay man, if you were attracted to someone, you could just say, hey, I'm attracted to you. Aren't you? So they go, oh, no, actually, that's not where my attraction is. Oh, okay, cool. Like, if we were truly egalitarian, everyone was chill thing, you could have that interaction and be okay. But, you know, we're not there yet. Therefore, we do still need, you know, gay spaces, lesbian spaces, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in a culture that just doesn't have those hangups, I wouldn't imagine there'd be much need for those. With something like the Federation, since it's born out of Earth, I mean, I suppose there could be just, it's just hung on as a cultural staple, but that's, you know, that would be speculative. Yeah, he's someone else who wants physical media. Yeah. How should I deal with my extremist anti-LGBT mother? I don't know. Because I'm incredibly fortunate in that the people who matter the most to me in my life, none of them have faded out of my life or pushed me away or been unaccepting of who I am, even as who I am has continued to change and evolve. Because part of this thing is that, like, it's not, you know, when I first came out to my mother, it was about a decade ago, and it was just as a cross dresser. You know, the whole lot, I didn't even know that gender fluid was a word, much less a concept that I understood. So, you know, I haven't, I don't have firsthand experience in dealing with people who are important to your life, you know, enough where I presume at least you don't just want to cut them out. I don't have experience in dealing with toxic people who you want to still have in your life for one reason or another. And as a result, I'm rather unqualified to say what you should do. Um, the it's just hard when you don't have support. And I don't know your living situation. I don't know if you're still living at home where you actually have to see her on a daily basis, if you're only seeing her on occasion. I don't know actually what would necessarily make that easier or harder, because, you know, there's an argument to be made that her just being immersed in, you know, you being you would help break down the wall a little bit. But then, you know, if she was seeing you on a daily basis, that's a daily opportunity for her to erode your sense of self if that's something she's actively doing. So I honestly just don't know. I would honestly say if you have the ability to reach out to a therapist or a counselor of any sort, to do that. Somebody with some sort of credentials, some qualification, because, you know, that is far enough outside my own personal sphere of experience that I don't. I wish I had more to offer, but I don't. I do wish you absolutely the best of luck, though. I may be being silly here, but is it true that the trickster created the time bug from Turn Left? Yes. Yeah, they actually say that in Turn Left, that the time bug is one of the tricksters brigade. So yeah, that is in there. Jumping on back to Doctor Who, as we usually default to eventually. I live with my parents. I'm an adult, but I have autism, and my parents have guardianship of me. Oh. When the person who's not accepting of you has some degree of control over you, whether it's a guardianship or it's because you're not an adult yet, that massively complicates everything. And again, the best that I can offer to do is to see if you can get some sort of therapy or counseling, you know, to talk about your relationship with your mother. Not like conversion therapy or any of that crap, but someone who might have some suggestions or might be willing to sit down and talk with both you and your mother together in a professional, controlled setting. I need to know more about your earrings. They look pretty, but I can't identify what's on them. Okay, so let me see if I can tip it the right way. Is it? No, that way. So these are Slytherin earrings, and they're wood. My partner Liz gave me these. Friend of hers actually makes them. I also have some wood TARDISes made by the same person. What do you think about the straight pride thing? Any possible argument that it is not meant to be anti-LGBTQ was immediately stomped by the fact that they tried to have it happen during Pride Month. you are literally trying to stomp on LGBTQ plus people, and I have no interest in even having a conversation about or with those people. They can piss off. Is it weird that whenever I hear you talk about LGBTQ plus advice, it's always comforting and warm? I don't know if it's weird, but now you made me feel warm reading that, so thank you. I'm gonna be a Slytherin this Halloween. Awesome! I'm a Slytherin every day, so you know, Halloween works too. I would like to see Clara and Arya, aka me, Maisie, Maisie Williams. Is that I don't know why I'm flaking on names today. Character in Doctor Who. I wouldn't, because I just don't know how it would differentiate itself from Doctor Who as a show, because they've basically got their own TARDIS. They would be doing the same thing. I don't know. Captain Jack costume is in the works for me. Ooh, nice choice. I always look forward to your LGBT content. That's nice to hear. And actually, like this was a slightly weird month, because the video I put out that kind of touched on it wasn't about it openly, and that was the one about joke telling from a couple of days ago. So you know, that was that I was actually surprised that one went down as well as it did. To be honest, I thought it was going to be a much more contentious video, but yeah, that went pretty well. Pre-Discovery Star Trek was surprisingly bad about LGBT issues. Like, even though I do like Star Trek, I'm not immersed enough in it to know. So when you say it's bad, like, I know there was like basically zero representation going on within the show, which for the world it was supposedly set in doesn't make a lot of sense. But like, were they actually bad about it in that like they had negative representation? Because to my memory, I never saw anything like that. That's not to say it isn't there. Like I said, I haven't seen everything of Star Trek. There isn't even any iteration of Star Trek that I've seen every episode of. So I don't know if that is or isn't the case. The LGBT content was how I found you, then was excited for all the Doctor Who. I mean, those two things are the main way that people find me, either through the LGBTQ plus content or through Doctor Who. Doctor Who, obviously the thing I talk about the most, but the LGBTQ plus content is also stuff that I make a point of doing regularly. You know, that it keeps coming up. Whereas other stuff that I talk about, you know, I'll talk about Star Wars and I'll talk about, you know, the MCU, but that's when it's topical. I'll talk about LGBTQ plus at least once a month, regardless. What exactly is negative representation? Oh boy, this is a can of worms. I'm gonna slightly dodge that question because I can't think of like a great example off the top of my head, but what I would mean is, in the context of something like Star Trek, which was what I was saying, supposedly it is a post-need utopian society. Star Trek is. So in theory, there is proper equality. So if at any point they did a story that depicted within the Federation that there was still bias or prejudice or confusion or whatever about any part of the LGBTQ plus spectrum, that specifically within the context of that show, given what its premise is, I would consider that to be negative because it's taking a stance against a certain kind of people that is, and in fact, in direct violation of the stated premise of the show. So within the specific context of Star Trek, that is how I would say it is there. How something is or isn't negative representation is actually very much a case-by-case basis, just like how positive representation is a case-by-case basis. And you can't just make the blanket thing, well, if you do this, it's always good. If you do this, it's always bad. Gay bookstores need to be a thing. Depending on where you do your shopping, they kind of are in some places, although they may not be what you think. I have an odd dilemma. What do I do when I have creative ideas for short films and art projects, but I absolutely have no desire for praise or recognition? Just do them. I mean, honestly, I would think that would free you up immensely, because if you don't care if people like it or if that many people even see it, then just do it. Just do whatever you want to do. Me, I do care. So that's not a headspace I can get into. Let's see. Yeah, but I need a gay hangout that isn't clubs or bars because they're a bit much for me since I'm autistic. Okay, fair. A lot of the, particularly the gay male, but like in general, a lot of the LGBTQ plus social scene is very much built around the nightlife, which, if you're someone who doesn't like naturally gravitate towards going out to clubs or parties or being up late or big groups of people, then that can leave you feeling a little isolated. That is kind of a asexual cafes. Somebody get me investors on the phone. We'll make a mint off this. It'll be great. I watched an anime last year from an anime film from last year called Penguin Highway. Okay, it has fantastic characters, a surreal yet cleverly touching story. It was wonderful animation. Huh? I hadn't heard of that one. Like, it made me think of Penguin Island, which is a book that I also haven't read, but I've heard about. Oh no, I hadn't heard about that one. Let me see here. Is the Terrence Dicks tribute already shot, or is that later because you want to script and plan more? So, K9 knows this because this I put up the docket for what's planned for the rest of the month up on the Patreon. Hey, I've plugged it twice. I don't know if that just makes me a bigger shill or getting better at this, but Sunday's video is going to be a tribute to Terrence Dicks, who passed away last week. And if you don't know who he is, watch the video on Sunday, and if you like Doctor Who at all, you'll realize why you should appreciate who he is. But I have already shot it. I didn't script it. I did, however, sort of be sure I have my ducks in a row in terms of double checking, what things he had worked on, and exactly, and I watched a number of interviews with him, and like I did something I almost never do. I did research before I shot that, but no, I didn't script that one, so it is already shot. If you had to choose a Doctor from New Who to completely scrap, who would it be? Oh, I don't like that question. All right. First things first, Whittaker, I'm not going to allow to be part of this discussion because she's only at her first series, and until she's done her tenure, I don't feel like I have any business saying whether or not she should be scrapped. So she's off the table. That leaves us, well, it leaves us 4, technically 5 if you want to count the War Doctor, but that also seems like a gimme and he'd be the easy call to remove, so I'm not going to count him either. Let's make it actually difficult. So if I'm scrapping one Doctor out of those who have completed their run, meaning Eccleston, Smith, Tennant, Capaldi, I would ditch Tennant. Don't hurt me. That's not to say I want to ditch Tennant. I love Tennant stuff, but if you're gonna make me pick from those 4 who to get rid of, that's... Sorry. Don't hit me. Nice nails. Thank you. This actually, I tweeted about this, but I've been saying for months now that eventually the day was going to come when I was not going to give enough of a crap to put in the effort to take my nail polish off before going into the office for the start of a work week, because I had yesterday off because it was Labor Day. Mark your calendars. Today is the day where whatever craps I had left that were motivating me to take my nail polish off before going to work, they are gone. Flips table. How dare you? Tenant is perfect. I'm surprised only one person's flipping a table. Can't say Nathaniel is not honest. Yeah, to my own detriment, I think. Tenet is why I got into Doctor Who. Again, like, please realize the context of that question. But because I do like Tennant. Not as much as a lot of people, but I do like him. If I wasn't in the food business, I would do my nails. I love doing my nails. Like, I've hated taking this stuff off. And, yeah, apparently I've run out of craps. So, there we go. You've poked the bear. Poked the bear. I think I've set up camp in its cave. I'm gonna censor this slightly just because I don't want the archive of this to get demonetized. Do you have a single F left when it comes to that job? I've got a couple. Not many though. I think what it is that I've run out of the energy. I've run out of the craps that I would need to put energy into appearing more traditionally masculine. Because the thing is, I used to go to work, I used to put my hair up in the hat the way that I still do a fair number of the videos here. I did that every day for about 1.5 years from when I first got my hair colored. I stuffed it up in the cap. I think everybody probably, I did it for so long, I think everyone probably thought I was trying to cover the fact that I was going bald, which I'm not. But I did that, but that was work. That was effort to get it all up, stick it up, and make sure it stayed up there. And I got sick of doing it. So I stopped. And like the nails, it would have been work and effort for me to take this off. And I stopped. Like, there's more that I could do to like truly not give a crap, but like that would be the scale tipping in the other direction. So like right now it's at like it's properly flat. It's at a true neutral. I'm not putting extra effort, beyond simply looking professional, because I still go, decent, nice pants, button-down shirt. I look professional in the office, because none of this is against dress code. So, I'll do that because that's an actual requirement of my job. But if it's not actually required for my job, I'm done putting in effort to appear the way that I think my coworkers would prefer to have me appear. But by the same token, I'm not going to put in extra effort to go the other way and really push the boundaries, because to go in, with lipstick and eyeshadow or heels, that's also more work. And again, I don't give enough of a crap to put in the effort to make it look like I give even less of a crap than I currently do. So, there you go. I mean, look, I say all this, like, I still do my job. I don't want to give the impression that I, like, go in and sit there and don't do anything. I do my job. I even think I'm halfway decent at it, which is one of the things that's frustrating. It would almost be easier if I sucked at it. But the reason I've had this job for 8 years is because I'm actually pretty good at it, which, that's its own weird thing. My favorite movie from the 1980s is Amadeus. That movie is a masterpiece on all fronts. That is a really, really good movie. Yeah, just across the board, it's phenomenal. Do any of your coworkers watch this channel? Not actively, I don't think. I do think I have at least one who has seen a few, because actually, she asked me today, and this is the first time it's happened at work, she asked me today what my preferred pronouns were. And I actually said to her, you're the first person to ask that. So that was kind of nice. I told her what I tell everyone. I don't care. But I did point out that, like, everybody in the office is going to know me as he. So, like, she might as well stick with that. Otherwise, no one's going to know what the heck she's talking about. But that was kind of an odd thing. Forgive me if this is out of line, but is your partner non-binary? You consistently use neutral terms. No, she's not non-binary. And I don't use neutral terms. I refer to Liz as she. I always refer to her as she. But there's a reason I use partner instead of girlfriend, because to me, girlfriend feels like high school, and what I have with her is more substantive than that. She is a partner in my life, and partner feels good and right and correct for us. But partner is also a bit of a euphemistic term, and it's something that often people use to cover that they're in a same gender relationship, or to not specifically gender their, whoever their partner is. So like my use of the term partner is not to hide Liz's gender, because she's not non-binary. She is a cis woman. She's bisexual, but she's not non-binary. And it's okay for me to say that, because like we've had this discussion with her on the channel. She was in my video on bisexual representation, so I'm not like outing her by saying that. This is all known. What's on your mouse pad? That is a Borderlands 2 mouse pad. I think that's 0, if I remember. I haven't played Borderlands 2 in ages. And I can't remember how I got that. Thanks for a great live stream, everyone. Thanks for stopping in, Meg. It was good to see you. Oh, crap. This has been going for a while. I gotta jump back to the Discord real quick. Okay. So let's see. I'm back on the Discord now for these. I know this is perhaps a little outside of what you're thinking, but I'd like to see a revival of the United States of Terra. Oh! That would be interesting, partly because that show ended abruptly and weirdly. The last half of the 3rd season, it kind of goes off the rails a bit, but it was a really fascinating show up to that point. If folks have never seen it, it was a show on Showtime about someone with DID, dissociative identity disorder, colloquially known as multiple personality disorder. And it was very good and very well acted. Like I said, kind of went off the rails second half of its 3rd season. And that also ended up being the last season. I would be interested in seeing a continuation on that, just so we can maybe get a better ending. Also, Thundercats is a live action movie. No. Do you think if Doctor Who gets axed in the next few years that it will come back 20 years later? If it does, what will we call it? It would be the newest, so New Who would make sense, but what would that make our current Doctor Who? Okay. If Doctor Who ever goes away again, I think it is always going to be a possibility that it can be brought back. I think the very nature of the revival, of the 2005 revival for the current era of Doctor Who we're in, shows that this show can be brought back at a later date, basically without missing a beat. So I would absolutely expect that to happen. What would we call it? I mean, I don't know. Maybe we'd end up calling the current series the Millennial Era. I mean, it extends a bit beyond just the millennial decade, but that was when it started. So maybe that would be it, and then whatever would be New Who, or New Who. Could be like New York, or New Who. Let's see. Oh, thoughts on the idea of the Buffy reboot? I actually, from what I know about what they're approaching, I think the Buffy reboot has a lot of potential, especially with the fact that they're talking about having an African-American Buffy. Because on the one hand, that could be it's always execution dependent, and it could be very gimmicky and shallow and dumb. But I think if you're going to reboot Buffy, the thing to do is to put it back in high school again and have it reflect a high school experience that would be distinctly different from that of Sarah Michelle Gellar's Buffy Summers. So if they have Buffy be African American and reflect what the high school experience of an African American in now is, it has the potential to still keep that core idea of the problems of high school blown up to horror story proportions, but to reflect a different age, in terms of like now a different time period and a different high school experience from a distinctly different perspective because of who she is. I think there's honestly a ton of potential in that. Again, a lot of potential for it to completely belly flop, and it's always going to be execution dependent. But honestly, I don't think that's a bad idea at all. Ah, I have still to this day never seen an episode of Buffy. I mean, sort of like what I said with me and not having read Ender's Game when I was younger. Depending on how old you are now, I mean, you might be outside the window of appreciating it. You know, depending on your own preferences and tastes. I do think it's something best enjoyed by people who are young adults or becoming young adults because that's the experience that it speaks to. That's not to say that you can't be older than that and still enjoy it. I'm just saying that's who it's geared towards. And if you're outside that demographic, you may not get as much out of it. It's hard to say. I'm getting into D&D. Ooh, I'm not ashamed of it, nor am I scared of being a newbie around professionals. D&D is great. I would love to play more D&D. I haven't played in a couple years now. But yeah, no, you're never too old to get into D&D. D&D is awesome, especially if you can get with a good, reliable gaming group. Oh, it's so good. New. Who? So good they named it thrice. Um, excuse me. Buffy is pretty timeless in my opinion. It's pretty timeless too if your high school experience reflects a 90s white middle class high school experience. I mean, I think there is a lot of space to open that up. And it's not as dated as you would think because it like so much of it is just dealing on fantastical rules anyway. It doesn't date as badly as something like I don't know 90210, which also had a revival. Hey, bringing back the original theme. That thing didn't stick around for very long, did it? So it's certainly aged better than a lot of stuff set in high schools in general, because there aren't as many era specific references as you would expect, or at least not that are important. So no, it's aged better than a lot of stuff from the same timeline. I'll definitely grant that. Um, so is this about any revived franchise? Can we suggest good, bad, revived stuff? I mean, drop in suggestions. I'm probably going to be ending the live stream soon. And as I said, we went all over the place, and that theme didn't stick for long. I don't know how to control the conversation. I'm very bad at it. Can we appreciate the cheese man from Buffy? I wear the cheese. The cheese does not wear me. Ah. How are the newfound Let's Plays doing in terms of views, etc.? Well, I mean, like, you can see for yourself, the view count's up there. It's the lowest viewed stuff I've put out in a while. That said, I am going to finish it out. If I have as much left in the game as I think I have, I'll get 2 more Let's Plays out of it, and I'll have gotten through the whole thing. But yeah, it's not particularly well viewed. Now, to be fair, at least to my understanding of Let's Plays, generally they go better when it's, you know, either games that are brand new or are very much sort of in the zeitgeist, because like I'm never going to start Let's Playing or, you know, streaming something like Fortnite or whatever, because it's not my bag and all of that. But like, unless you really tap into something that is super popular and remains so, generally live streams do well by being on current recently released stuff, which this game, while out this year, you know, it's a small indie 16-bit style game on Steam from months ago. So I'm not surprised that the Let's Plays aren't getting a ton of traction, but I'm still enjoying doing them. And like I said, I'd consider doing others in the future. But you know, depending on what sort of games I actually lined up. I have a couple of ideas of what I might do, but like I wouldn't expect like the Let's Plays to like suddenly become a regularly scheduled feature. But you know, it might be something that I'll revisit again down the line. Dr. Hoomst. The Rocko's Modern Life movie was good. That's another recent revival. It's been a good month for animated movies. Rocko, Zim, Steven Universe. I haven't seen the Invader Zim one. Well, I also haven't seen the Steven Universe, but I haven't seen Steven Universe, the show. I should watch the Invader Zim one, because I have seen all of that show. I feel like I might have grown out of it a bit. Have you played Life is Strange? I have not. Like, most up to date console I've got up there is a PS3, and I didn't have a Steam account until I got Newfound Courage, which I only got because and I mentioned this in the first live stream that the guy who was the director behind it, the main designer, sent me a Steam key on it because he wanted me to play it. So, you know, my I keep up with gaming in terms of like what's going on in general, but I haven't played like the last game that I bought and played through and actually really enjoyed was Bastion, which is what, 2012? That game? It's great if you've never played it. It's phenomenal. I loved it. But like, I'm cheap, and games cost $60 before you even get into microtransaction stuff. What are your thoughts on Dark Crystal Age of Resistance? Review up Friday. Short version. Do you watch Doctor Who on BBC America Prime or DVD? I mean, like, I buy the series on DVD, well, actually, Blu-ray at this point, because I like having physical media. But mainly I've been getting it through Prime lately. I know it's moving off Prime soon, so I have to figure out how I'm going to keep up with it. I'll deal with that later. Cards Against Humanity rules. I haven't played it in a while, actually. I mean, I've got the box up there. Hey, dude, what the haps? I now feel very unhip for even having read that out loud. Halo must be the best sci-fi game franchise. See, shooters aren't really my bag. Like, about as close as I come to shooters would be something like Uncharted. I've never seriously enjoyed shooters as a genre. I think like about as much as I ever loved it was GoldenEye back in the day, but that was pretty specific. Do you ever feel weighed down by the hard copies you must own? I don't own as many hard copies, as much physical media as you might think. I mean, I do have like basically a wall of DVDs, but it's not as much as you might think because I've actually gotten pretty good about culling it and going back and going, all right, if I'm honest with myself, am I actually ever going to watch that one again? Or do I just have it because I feel like I'm supposed to, or I thought I was going to watch it more and I haven't? And I've done that a number of times, and I've managed to basically keep it from getting bigger. So like stuff goes out, new stuff comes in. So I've also gotten much better about only getting stuff that I really want. I used to have a bit more of a completionist mentality. Like, I think first time I finally started to break that was when I bought on DVD, because I do actually like Revenge of the Sith, but there was part of me that was like, well, you have to also get episode 1 and episode 2. And it took a lot to make myself like, no, I don't. I don't have to. I don't have to be a completionist on this. And I was able to break that. So I'm way more selective at this point about buying sets that or DVDs releases, whatever, that I actually want, that I truly believe that I will watch again, not because I'm supposed to have it. So like, I've already got the first 5 seasons of Game of Thrones on Blu-ray. I intend to buy season 6, if I ever see it for sale. I'm not going to buy season 7 or 8. Because season 7 had a couple of good moments, but so much of it was just building towards season 8, which I didn't like. So, but I'll keep my seasons 1 through 6 because I'll rewatch those. Looks like we have some fun form of DLCs for movies now. Theatrical releases with extended, altered versions are all the rage now. Well, I mean, like, the director's cut is not a new thing. I'm not a huge fan of them in general, especially when they appear to supersede the theatrical cut. Like I like, and this is not a new opinion. This is one I've had for a while. Like I remember, so a movie that I quite like is the 90 something or other 90s Last of the Mohegans, the one with Daniel Day-Lewis. Um, It's a good thing I like it because I'm actually named after the main character from the book. So, that works out well. But the thing is, I bought it twice on on DVD on two different times. One time where it said director's cut, another time where it didn't say director's cut, but it was still the director's cut. And I got rid of both of them because and I can't find the theatrical cut of that movie. And the ending completely kills the pacing. It completely loses steam because there's this long, protracted monologue from Chingachgook at the end. In the theatrical release, it's short and punchy and makes the point and sustains the power of what happened in the lead up to it. And in the director's cut, it just completely loses steam because he won't shut up. And I don't like the director's cut. I can't find the theatrical. It drives me completely up the wall. So, some people are like, the director's cut is the ultimate version. Like, I got disillusioned on that, 15 years ago. Any advice on how to limit hard copies, besides the KonMari method, I haven't bought in a while, I just borrow. Like I said, try to be honest with yourself. Will you ever actually watch that again? Try to be honest. Or are you just buying it because you liked it in the theater? Because that was another thing. I used to just buy, I like that in the theater, I'll buy that. And then it would sit on the shelf and I realized I actually don't have a massive urge to plug it in and watch it again. And just sort of learning myself over time. I am well over at this point. I'm going to pop back to the Discord real quick. I wish the Sabrina reboot had been more similar to the original run. I didn't really watch either, so I don't have an opinion on that. Do you think a reboot could work? See, I didn't really watch Reboot. I knew it was a thing. I remember catching bits of it, but I never really watched that either. What do you prefer when something is rebooted or if it's brought back as a revival? I do think that is really a case-by-case situation because sometimes, for whatever reason, maybe given how old the thing is, you can't do anything other than reboot it. But I find the revival trend to be really interesting because it requires way more thought because you have to figure out how does this continue from what it was before. Whereas reboot, there are good reboots out there, but you can do a very lazy reboot. You just go, okay, well, we take the name and a couple of elements and just do whatever we want. Whereas if you're going to do a revival, you kind of have to be more careful about how you're going to do it. That's not to say they always succeed, but I kind of appreciate them for that alone, if nothing else. If a movie is pretty much good on its own, but ends up being remade due to quote-unquote popular opinion, and the remake flops, do you think it now will affect the original movie? Well, no. A bad remake, especially if the remake flops, doesn't taint the original at all. If anything, it makes you appreciate the original more because you're like, boy, that thing was really great, not like that new thing that happened. I think where things get weird is when a remake is doing something distinctly different from the original, but is also extremely successful to the point that it overshadows the original. Like Scarface is a great example of that. I don't even know how many people realize that the Al Pacino Scarface movie is a remake at all because it's completely overshadowed the original. And it's very, very different in terms of the specifics. But, it's an odd thing that happens sometimes. I'm just trying to burn through the Discord, guys, so bear with it. Folks, I still say guys sometimes because in my head, guys is a gender neutral term. I'm still trying to get out of that habit. Let's see. Do you think some Disney movies need a reboot, like the Black Cauldron perhaps? Black Cauldron is about the one Disney animated film that I would have no problem with them remaking because there's source material for them to go off of, and they could probably use another bite at the apple because Black Cauldron was not good. And I would rather that they try and remake bad things or things that didn't quite work rather than take something that was good and try and capture lightning in a bottle again. Not related to the topic, but were you annoyed in Stranger Things by the fact that of the four main guys, the only one who was single by the end was implied to be asexual? No. I mean, it didn't really occur to me. So no, I didn't. No. And finally, this last one off the Discord. Any tips for campy writing without making it completely dumb? Not really, because camp is not really my thing. I'm not big on campy, so I'm not a person to ask. Like, I can appreciate when it works, but I dislike it more often than I like it. So I'm not a person to ask for an opinion on how to make camp work. Oh, okay. Oh, so I could have stated this more clearly. I was talking about Avengers Endgame, Spider-Man Far From Home, Midsummer getting a theatrical release weeks after the original run. That's a weird thing that they're doing now. I would be curious to see what the returns on these are. I can't imagine that they're all that much, but like it's basically, I think they're really only, it's not like a proper full re-release. They do that like kind of at the tail end of the thing's normal theatrical lifespan. So I think they're just extending the normal theatrical lifespan of these movies a bit by doing that. It's a weird thing. I don't really think too much of it either way beyond that. I used to think of guys as a gender neutral term, but some people who identify as female don't like to be used with them. I think that's valid. Yeah, like I said, in my head, calling a group of people guys is a gender neutral term, but like I also know that that's not everyone's understanding. So I try to get but it's very ingrained in my head. I've been saying that for decades. So I'm still trying to get out of the habit, and it's my default, and I have to force myself to not use it. I think my back is starting to be annoyed with me for being in this chair, so I think I need to wrap it up. Plus, I'm also over time. Have you seen the Dark Crystal series? I have. Review Friday. Should bitch be a gender neutral term? As far as I personally am concerned, it is a gender neutral term. I actually call way more male identifying people. It's not a word I use often, but like I've called more male identifying people that word than I have female identifying people. Again, though, that's just me. Like I'm not gonna say how other people should or shouldn't use the word, but personally, I don't assign gender to that word personally. I'm out of water. I am about 17 minutes past when this should have ended, so I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. We had a pretty good turnout for this one, especially considering I couldn't stay on the stated topic of the stream worth a darn. But nice for everyone to stop in all the same. Much appreciated. One of the worst games that came out last year was the fan-made Half-Life game, Hunt Down the Freeman. Yeah, I heard about that. I dare you to play it. No, because I'd have to pay for it, and no. But that's it, folks. Thanks for joining me. I hope folks had a good Labor Day weekend. And if you come from an area that doesn't recognize Labor Day, I hope you just had a good weekend. Hope you have a good rest of the week. And thank you for everything. Thank you for the support, for the super chats, the Patreon, watching, sharing, liking, just being around. It really does just sort of brighten up stuff to know that people care about what I do. So thanks again, everybody, for joining me, and I want you all to remember that you are beautiful, you are loved, you are valid, you are the council. I'm just running the meetings. Have a good night.